deal with the Bible, we treat the Bible as though it's something other than a book. It's a book. It's how God has chosen to reveal himself foremost to us for salvation. And he starts off in Genesis. Why? Because this is the beginning. And he's giving a story. He's showing what Paul says in Romans 15, that we can go back and look from things that were formerly written. Look at what God was trying to do. Mankind is stupid. And I mean, to the utmost degree. We can know something is right, want to do it, plan to do it, and then, you know what? I'll do it tomorrow. That's just how we are. We can know that we are sinners. We can know that we're right. We can know that Jesus died for us. I believe he did. And that ain't the kind of belief that he's looking for. We can know that. We can have an intellectual, mental assent to the facts that all three of us have and not be saved. That's why Jesus makes the point in Luke 8. And he's getting to a point. This whole point is the culmination of a story, what God says is going to happen. Now, God isn't, JP, and you're not a real boss.
Corey, I'm bald like
you're not a real boss. You're a fake boss. You're not a real boss. You're not a real boss. Bro, I still see hair up there. You're not real. You're not real.
It doesn't come off.
You're not even real. I don't know why he did that. But God, JP, is not into taking chances. Think about this. God doesn't trust us. Nowhere do we find God heaping praise upon how trustworthy man is. But for God to say that I'm going to have some people there in heaven with me, that some people are going to place their faith in me, in order for God to believe that, or in order for it to happen, and it not be God initiating it, that's God placing faith in us.
No, but I agree with you, Corey. I believe God initiates it.
Okay, so and what he initiates, there is no turning back. He's given us.
That's where we disagree. See,
I
Corey?
think. Well, again, we don't have an example of it. As a matter of fact,
and I don't want to talk about once saved, always saved. Right?
Okay,
now,
that's well, you actually are, because implicit in what we're talking about is God's.
Just to know, I disagree with you, brother, and that's
God.
Where
God doesn't step into the ring and throw a punch, JP, and miss.
No, I agree with that, brother. So but you know my responses.
The Spirit is there, and He has this. This is what his plan, His promise has always been. And he's shown us by Israel, by extension of showing us Israel's response, even before Israel, before the law, with even people like Abraham, even people like Lot, even the world prior to that. Even
I'll make a once saved always stream next. You heard?
Oh, it's coming.
Well, so now
it's coming. That's gonna be coming maybe next week.
Here's what he did. He's shown us that everybody keeps failing. Everyone keeps failing. I don't care who you are. Even the people that were in the garden that got to see him, 2 people have only ever seen him in his full glory, and they messed up. We don't have the ability to. So what does he do? He says, even before he brings them into the promised land, you're going to mess up. Get your heart right. He's telling them to. As he said, stretched out his hands all day long to a disobedient nation. Israel's never been obedient. There have been a few in it, but as a nation, no. So what does he say after he tells them to fix their heart? He says, in the future, I'm going to fix your heart. Think about that, JP. He says, in the future, God, I'm going to fix your heart. It ain't going to break after he fixes it. How is he going to fix it? I'm going to put my Spirit in your heart and leave him there and cause you to walk the right way. Perfectly no, but in a way to where you bring me glory. He says in Micah that I will be a shepherd and all my sheep.
I agree with all that, bro.
All my sheep. Look what he says. All my sheep will remain. The sheep never leave. Jesus brings this up. And so if we just follow the narrative of the story, what he has prophesied, what God has stated he's going to do, he's going to do it. And so he looks and sees, I give you, JP, the chance to do it. On your own, you won't do it. So I've got to step in and do it. That will cause you, if you see it correctly, I hope you do, to see what he's done in spite of you and love him all the more. You mean to tell me I didn't do anything and you saved me for as bad as I am?
All right, Corey, because I want to hear that response. JP said that he agreed, brother, but I want to see.
I'm afraid of Corey, brother, because once he starts preaching, it's over, brother. And he'll.
But Corey be cooking though.
He brings 40 points. It's impossible. I can't respond to all of that. All right, I don't even know where to start. Listen. I agree. This is God, man. Nah, but look, I agree with everything Corey said, right? Where I disagree, right, is very simply, right, the once saved, always saved issue, where I believe that Romans chapter 11 says that everything Corey says is correct, 100%, but we must have faith. So if we have faith, we're good. If we do not have faith, if we say we no longer want to have faith in Christ and I want to have faith in Allah, then those promises will not happen because the contingency is faith. Romans 11 says, you continue in faith or otherwise you will be cut off. So everything.
Well, hold on, wait a second. The doggone it, JP almost broke my own computer. You made me almost smack my own computer. That is not what that text says. Doggone it, JP. That is not what that text says. You're reading Romans 11, right?
Romans 11, yes. Okay,
all right.
I will break down my own text the way that you break down all of your texts. And I will show you how I'm coming to my conclusions. And then obviously, if you want to disagree, you can disagree, okay?
Okay.
So that's that. But let me pull up mine, brother, so I can
Yeah, go ahead.
So I can just highlight as I read. I'm sorry you have to go through this again, brother. I literally did this earlier. All right. Romans chapter 11. Mm-hmm. Okay, Romans chapter 11. So look, Corey's a scholar, right? He's studying to get his master's. So I'm not here to convince Corey. But what I am here to do is give Corey a logical position of what I believe so that Corey at least knows why I believe what I believe. So let me say this. Okay, so boom. The context here is salvation, right? I say then they have stumbled that they should fall, but et cetera, by them the jealousy salvation has come.
The context is what? I didn't catch that.
The context here is salvation, the Gentiles and the Jews, right?
No.
So this whole passage is brother. Let's Okay, let's slow down. Okay, no. Okay, so you know what, brother, let's slow down.
Tell me what the context is again.
Okay, so let's slow down. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Certainly not. Mm-hmm. But their fall, therefore the Jews provoked them to jealousy. Salvation has come to the Gentiles. We have the Jews, we have salvation, and we have the Gentiles, okay? So we can all agree there. If you want to split hairs and say that's not the context, where we can all agree is the Jews, the Gentiles, salvation. Now let's move on. Thank you.
Go ahead.
For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle to the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry. If by any means I may provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh, the Jews, and save some of them. Against salvation, Jews, Gentiles. For if their being cast away is reconciling the world, what will acceptance be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy, and the root is holy, so are the branches. And some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root, fatness, and olive tree. Do not boast against the branches, but if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. So the text is saying what Corey and I initially said I agree with. Right? Remember that it is Christ that supports you, so don't boast. Okay, let's carry on. You will say then, branches were broken off that I may be grafted in. Well said, because of unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by faith. So why were the Jews broken off? Because of unbelief. They were broken off, which means they were a part of. You can't be broken off if you were not a part of. That's illogical. I think we all agree with that. And I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm just simply here to share my position. So you guys don't think I'm just making things up. All right, let's carry on. Don't be haughty, but fear, for if God did not spare the natural branches, the Jews, he may not spare you either. Therefore, consider the goodness and severity of God on those who fell, severity, but towards you, goodness, if you continue in his kindness. Otherwise, you will also be cut off like the Jews who were a part of and then got cut off. This is a warning to the Gentiles. We all agree there. And then it says this, which is why I disagreed with Corey earlier. Because in verse 23 it says, and they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. So the Jews that were cut off, they can come back. And earlier in the passage, it says that there's a remnant. There's a remnant. Let me finish up because I'm feeling like Corey right now.
Go ahead.
For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into cultivated olive tree, how much more will these who are natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? So, what is the text saying here? The text here is saying, you could remove my screen. The text here is saying that you have to continue in unbelief, or I should say in belief, and if you do not continue in belief, you will be cut off. If you cannot be cut off, then it's a redundant text, and the I don't want to say the condition, there we go. The condition that you have to continue to believe is there. If you don't continue to believe, you'll be cut off. Now, what do people say? Corporate. They say, oh, this is corporate. That's fine. Corporate law applies to individuals. So if I make a corporate law for my company and I say if you steal, you will get robbed, or you will get robbed off your job, or you will lose your job, better yet. If you steal, I will steal your job. You know what I'm saying? That will apply to every single individual in that company. So corporately, if you say, oh, that's all corporate, irrelevant, because even in the text earlier, if you're going to say it's corporate, it spoke about the remnant. And the remnant were a part of that whole that squad of Jews that stopped believing. So that's why I come to the conclusion that I have to continue to believe as a Gentile, because if I stop believing, I will be cut off.
Okay. Now let's go back to what where am I at? There it is. All right, here we go.
Are you going to ask me a question or preach?
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Okay, thank
you. I was just really wanting you to get to verse 23.
Okay.
Because what you said, you interjected something onto the text.
Okay.
You said that there's a contingent, right? Okay, fine. And they also, if they do not continue in their unbelief.
Verse 22, correct. Therefore, consider the goodness and severity of God on those who fell, severity, but towards you, goodness, if you continue in his goodness, otherwise you will also be cut off.
Okay. And they, now, by the way, I believe that you have to continue believing.
Correct. You just say if you stop believing, you never believed, and that's where
I believe if a person genuinely believes and he stops believing, if he genuinely believes and he stops believing, he'll go to hell. I believe that. However, I believe that if a person genuinely believes, it's because the Spirit is in him, and he will keep believing. But now, look what the text says in verse 23. The text says in verse 23, and they, JP, who's the they?
The Jews.
All right. Well, which Jews?
The Jews that were cut off, brother.
Israel.
No. The Jews that were cut off.
The Jews that were cut off?
Yeah, because remember that the passage talks about the remnant who does believe.
There will be God will save a remnant, right?
No. There is a remnant.
There is
Romans 11.
And then he also says that he will elect some later on, right?
Yeah, but I told you I believe in election, brother.
Now we know there's a remnant.
Not in election, how the Calvinists see.
There's a remnant that has been chosen because Paul says that. I too am a Jew, is what Paul says. But it says if they continue in their unbelief. Here's my question:
if they do not continue, brother.
If they do, okay, I'm sorry, you're right. Mm-hmm. If they do not continue in their unbelief, does this mean that they used to believe?
I believe that.
Where was Israel? When was Israel believing?
Yeah, so I believe that Israel did believe, because we see in the Bible that there were points where Israel did believe, but they stopped.
When?
Brother, are you saying Israel was always in a state of non-belief? There were points when there were Israelites that believed.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's where I disagree with you, brother. I do. So
that's why I say so. When did Israel believe?
I mean, brother, do you want me to go through? I mean, let me get back to you on that, brother. But because I can't. Well, let me say why I'm gonna get back to you, Corey.
Okay.
Because I can't think of particular aspects of time.
That's fine.
But I do recall reading the Bible where there were Israelites that were righteous and Israelites that were not.
No. I don't mean individual people. There's always been somebody individually. You've always had a Jonah. You've always had a Moses.
Okay, fair enough, Corey. Fair enough. Well,
God
Corey, that's why I said.
God has never called Israel. Matter of fact, he's called Israel. He's called Judah and Israel, both unbelief. They are harlots.
Corey, that's why I made very clear in the beginning of my presentation that the passage in Romans 11 talks about the remnant, right? So this is talking about the Israelites that do not believe, but there is.
But wait a second. In the text, verse 23, and they also, if they do not continue in their unbelief. Israel has always continued in their unbelief. That's why when they were going in, before they went into the land, what did God tell them? He said that you won't do those things. You have a bad heart. He tells them to fix their heart, but he says, you know what? Because of your unbelief, because of your wickedness, that they haven't even done yet. They haven't even crossed over to the land yet. He says, I am going to take you out of the land. I'm going to run over you 30 times and destroy you. I'm going to put a hurting on you, but then I'll bring you back. Now,
and brother Corey, I do agree with you, Corey, that this is talking about Jews, right?
He's talking about the nation of Israel.
Correct. But what I'm saying is that because Romans 11 particularly mentions the remnant of Jews that are believing, right? I'm saying this is not towards them. This is to those Jews that do not believe.
This is for God it's the only nation that God has a specific plan.
No, I
for.
agree.
So now, but that nation, there's always some in there. Again, there's always
correct. And the text is talking about those who are in a state of unbelief.
The nation of Israel, right?
Correct. Not the remnant that Romans 11 mentions.
Say it again.
Not the remnant that Romans 11 mentions. So we both agree. This is talking about Israel in a holistic sense, not the remnant. We both agree there.
Correct. Now, because you said it, so there are some folks that talk about it corporately. Clearly, he's talking about corporate Israel, all of Israel.
Yeah, but because
Israel,
Romans 11 mentions see, bro, you're a good debater. Now you're making me forget everything. Because Romans 11 mentions the remnant, I'm saying that. Corey.
So the text is not saying, the text is not saying that Israel believed at one point and then stopped believing. It's not saying that. If Israel does not continue in what they've always been, which is an unbelieving, backsliding, godless, wicked nation, that's what they've always been. That's been their complaint, and God.
No, I hear you, brother. You're not wrong, brother.
So we can't take 23 to say that Israel used to believe and they stopped. That's not a text that we can turn to.
Because Corey, because I said I'm gonna get back to Corey. I'm a fair man. I said I'm gonna get back to you to show you examples of Jews that did believe or Israelites that did believe, because I believe there were Israelites that were righteous, and they stopped believing, and they can come back. But obviously, that we get into splitting hairs. So
and so the whole point has been this, and I'll digress after this. What Jesus makes a statement that you just don't get around. And I wanted to bring up this text too. I brought it up to Leighton.
The famous one you always bring up.
No. Now, and by the way, I heard you say something that people have debunked and rebuked. But that's another story. But in Luke 8, Jesus is speaking
about
salvation.
Debunk. I disagree with the debunk, but whatever.
Jesus is bringing up the parable of the seed and the soils. Jesus says, and I'm sorry, Alden, this is my Calvinist when I say they have a problem with this as well. But this is where Jesus is telling us that people can believe. You can believe temporarily, but it's not a saving faith.
Corey, honestly, brother, that's the one view that you have, brother, that I have not been able to refute. Because not that haven't been able to refute. I got to look into that one, because you're the only person I know has that view. That you
it's not my view, it's Jesus' view. He literally said.
No, I hear that, but Alton, he believes that you can believe and then stop believing.
Clearly throughout the Bible, there have been people who believed, but it wasn't in the context of a regenerated heart and then believing, because the purpose of a heart being regenerated.
Okay, wait, now I know your view. So you're saying that there are people that believe, but they didn't have a regenerated heart, correct?
Correct.
In order for you to believe forever, you have to have a regenerated heart.
We have to.
Well, it's just like the multitude that was following Jesus at one point. They believed.
No, I got it now. I got it now. Okay, so now I understand your view, Corey. Now
he uses the phrase that these people, they believe temporarily. But then at the end, he talks about the one group that we all know is saved in that the latter portion. Those are the ones who there's not a problem with the word of God. They hear the word, but unlike everyone else, they heard it in an honest and good heart. Well, how do you get an honest and good heart? You can't do that. This is why Jesus brings this point up about your heart has to be born from above. This is the Ezekiel passage 36.
Yeah, I have a different view on that, brother, but go ahead, keep cooking.
Well, he's telling us what he's going to do. Again, when I spoke earlier about when God says in Deuteronomy 10 for Israel to fix their heart, to circumcise their heart, they won't, they never will. But then he says in chapter 30, he says that I will, in the future, I will circumcise your heart. And when we go to Amos and Hosea, Obadiah, those places, Jeremiah.
Let me say something that you'll agree with. Their heart. You'll agree with this. The reason I believe that in the parable, right? I believe that as well. Now, here's where I'm going to make it like a real life example. There are people that accept the gospel and believe for wrong reasons. And that's why Satan can come up and take the seed. I agree with you that in order for you to have saving faith, you must truly believe in Christ. And whether you believe regeneration comes before or after, that's fine. Where you and I disagree is, can you, after being regenerated, depart from the faith? Because, Corey, a lot of what you're saying, 95%, I agree with. And actually, I would use those same arguments against Calvinists, believe it or not.
If a person...
Hey, I also want to get Johnson in whenever you guys get a chance.
Go ahead. We've been talking long enough. Go ahead, Johnson.
Now, me and Corey have been talking for years. That's my guy. That's my ninja. Corey knows what I really mean.
Hey, guys. What's up? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes,
man.
sir.
I didn't want JP's cooking. I didn't want to get
Johnson,
in.
be very careful. I know you don't believe in once saved, always saved, but if you bring a bad argument, Corey's going to...
I know.
He said, I know.
Bro.
JP was cooking with ice.
The one thing... Sorry. The last thing that...
Hey, thank you guys for watching the video. Go ahead and hit that like button. And if you like this particular content, hit that subscribe button as well if you have not done so. Also, check out this most recent video that I've done right here, or check out some of these other videos that I've done concerning the same topic. All right, you guys have a blessed day.